Hello and welcome to this, the first of 5 video tutorials for Final Cut Pro X. My name's Andrew Jardine from Digit Imaging and I will be your video guide. I guess the best thing to do is open up this bad boy and show you what we're dealing with. First we're going to just clarify what we're going to cover in the course. The objectives are to develop a basic understanding of Final Cut Pro, provide you with some basic level of film and sound editing skills, and then through these QuickTime movie tutorials give you something for ongoing support. The 5 tutorials that I have for you are this one, which is introduction to the viewer and the general menus, and also a look at some preferences which, as Mac users will know, come with all software. So we've got a preference panel just up here on the left, a preference direction. Second is importing, so safely bringing film footage into Final Cut Pro. Then we're going to look at the timeline and some of the general features there. The 4th tutorial will be getting creative, and then finally in tutorial 5 we're going to look at how you can get your work out of Final Cut Pro and either make a master file or share it directly online. Okay, so I guess the first thing to do is just give you a visual on the general user interface. You'll notice that I've increased the size of the mouse cursor so you can hopefully see where I'm going with things. Right, this is the basic general layout, what this bad boy looks like. Here we have the main viewer up on the top right. Here we have the event viewer, which I'll come to in a second. Down here, down at the bottom, we have the timeline, which is where all the action, all the good stuff goes on. So let's start over in the left. Event library. Whenever you've got files downloaded into Final Cut, this is where they will live. If I just click on one, you will see a selection of clips. Okay, right, so that's pretty much what we're dealing with. Down here at the bottom, as I say, on the timeline, we have all projects. Now, a project is basically all the clips that you can drag and drop any clip down into a project, and down here is where you get creative and do all the business. The menus along the top, I'll come to a little bit later, and also in the next part of this module we'll look at what goes on down here in the middle right. Again, this is pretty much where all the action happens. It's possible that when you first open up Final Cut Pro, you're going to be looking at a screen that looks like this. So we've got Event Library here, we've got the clips that have been downloaded into the event, then we've got an event player. So as you can see, we just do this, and then we've got here a project player. Now, so far I've found in my experience that you don't need all of this. It gets a little bit cluttery, and for you to work quickly, it's better to get yourself in a position where you just have the bare minimum with you at all times. So just to show you, if we go up to Window, we can hide the event viewer. That then gives us a larger single viewer, and this viewer will function for both events and also, hold on a second, it's just loading a project. As you'll see, when it loads the project, it will act as project viewer and also an event viewer. So again, get yourself comfortable depending on the size of your screen. Generally, when I'm working with an event, when I'm working in the events, I generally keep the timeline small, and then once I've got all my events and I know what I'm doing, I'll bring the timeline up back into play and then start messing around with it. So that's customizing the layout. Now that you've got your layout sorted, the next thing to do is just take a quick review of the menu functions. Within Final Cut Pro, we have up here File, New Project, New Event, Import. Okay, we've got all the functions that you need as with any software. But one of the beautiful things about Final Cut Pro is that you don't really spend a lot of time up here on the menu. The only things that you're going to ever really need to do are create a new event. And just to clarify, a new event is it's the start of a project. So everything that you do, create a new event first and download, import all your media into that event. Now we'll come to importing in a second. All right, I'm just going to move that event out, get rid of it. And the other thing that you might need, well, you're going to make a new event, download or import your files. Then when you're ready, you'll create a new project. The new project, you name it, you link it to an event. Now, if you've downloaded into a new event, that recent event will often be your default event. Again, we'll come to importing a little bit later. So just wanted to show you that. And here's our new project. And here's getting rid of it. As you can see, very, very simple menu functions. Click on something, right click, get your options. Very straightforward. Okay, so as I said, you don't generally spend a lot of time up here. You might be in Window to customize the view, and that's about it. The really important stuff happens here. Okay, so if we open up, let's open up Rock of London. It's quite a funky old project. Now within Rock of London, it's quite a complex project. I can zoom in to work on the timeline by using Command and Plus, which takes me nice and close into my clips, or by using Command and Minus, I can come out to get a general overview of what's going on. Now, Command A selects everything, but you can't generally do a mass function. You're going to have to go into each clip singularly. So Command A is quite useful when you're up in events. You don't generally get a chance to use it on the timeline. But let's just take a clip. We'll take one little clip there. When you're working on a clip, it's always good advice to put the cursor, to click on the cursor so it stops at a point within the clip. This then gives you a register. We're going to work over here on the right hand side for now. Okay, so within here we can balance color, it will do it automatically. We can match color, we can show the color board, which I'll come to in creative, and we can look at audio enhancements. There's also auto audio enhance and match audio. These two aren't selected because I've removed the audio from the clip because I'm using a soundtrack. If there was audio, as there is in this clip, you see, they're there for you to mess about with. Next button along is speeds. So we can slow it down by half, slow it down by ×4, slow it down by 10%. That's super slow. Or we can speed it up twice, 4 times, etc. We can reverse a clip, which is often quite useful. We can speed ramp, so we can generate from normal speed up to super speed, or vice versa. Instant replay, rewind, it's all there. Yeah. So those are your general effects and audio. These are speed. Okay, these are your speeds. Next, we have effects. Again, these are pretty cool. If I just take a simple clip like this, stop on the clip, come over here, click on an effect, and the beauty of this is as you run through the effect, as you can see my cursor just moving along, it's playing the clip for me and showing me what the effect will look like. Again, if I go in here, so it gives you a nice visual of what to expect. Okay, this was shot in very, very low light, so there's not a lot of data quality, and the effects aren't always going to come out how you like. But we've got basics, we've got blur effects. Radial's quite nice. I'm a big fan of radial. Do a bit Batman style. Okay, here we have photos. Final Cut Pro will link automatically to your iPhotos folder. Okay, you can also bring in a photo via the download, which I'll come to a little bit later. Same with music. This links to your iTunes. So all of your playlists, everything that you need. One word of advice regarding use of music in film. Try and make sure that you've got permission from the copyright owner. I mean, it's all well and good using a nice little bit of music. Just throw out a bit of a, give you a little bit of a soundtrack. Although now I am copyrighting AC Acoustics. Well, I have an issue with copyright, so I need to stop it. Sorry, gentlemen. But yeah, if you start throwing your own music library in willy-nilly, you might find some killjoy pops up out of the blue and says you can't use that song. Worst case scenario, they can sue you or the charity, or they might just require you to then go and re-edit. And if, as in this film, you've created your whole visual feel based on an audio soundtrack, then you're just going to have to do it again, which is a pain in the bum. Next, we've got transition browser. Transitions, as I'll show you in Creative, are they're just nice ways to go from clip to clip. General transitions are sort of, the generic transitions tend to be directional blurs, dissolves. Cross dissolve is an industry standard, as is movement. So you've got here, we'll just put some of the simple ones. The slide transition is quite nice. Mirror's a bit too much, I think. You've got swap. Yeah, again, every time you move your mouse through it, it will show you. Pinwheel. So depending on how crazy you want to go, really. We talked about putting in text. This will show you, I'm quite a fan of this type of stuff. Again, scroll through it and it will show you boogie lights, get a bit groovy. Yeah, there's loads in here. There's stuff that builds in and builds out. There are elements. This is quite good. Instant replay, speech bubbles, loads and loads and loads of information. And all of this is fully customizable. Next, we come to generators. I don't tend to use generators a lot, but they can be nice. You can put a generator such as this. I'll show you in Getting Creative. You can put this. It's basically a stills frame, just doing a little bit of magic on the side, and you can put that on top of a clip, and you can make it a little bit lighter. You can blend it into the clip to give a nice effect. Next, we have themes. Again, all manner of creative stuff. A little bit like iMovies, you can create a generic theme within your movie, and go for a documentary, get a little bit of drift. Just click on it, show you. Yeah, and then any of the transitions can be synced with that. It just makes it all look a little bit more rounded. To be honest, I don't generally use themes, but it's each to their own. Next, we have Inspector. Again, for all of you that are Mac users, let's just get into a clip again. For those of you that are Mac users, you'll know Inspector is generally where you do all the groovy stuff, and this is it. Okay, so we'll come to all of this in Getting Creative, but generally color, crop maybe, and compositing are the key things that you'll use in Inspector. Here we have sharing. I'll just show you quickly. When a project's done, you can share it directly to DVD, burn one off. You can put it to a master file, and when you create a master file, you'll get a variety of options in settings. Now, for what you guys are looking to do, you're generally going to work around a video codec H.264, which is a nice low resolution, QuickTime movie, which will go straight onto your web and look lovely. Okay, but again, we'll come to that later in sharing. Just cancel that. So that's what happens along this end. Over here, we have the cursor options. Generally, you're going to work with select, which is A. You can work with trim, but I'll show you a little cheat for that in a second. The two main ones that you're going to use are blade, which then cuts a clip. Very nasty. Just undoing that. Command Z is the undo default. So you're generally going to spend a lot of time in select. and this, so don't worry about these, this is useful to select or blade, or you can just use the B letter or the A letter to toggle between the two. So if I press B, I'm here. If I press A, I'm back. B, A. And then here, this is a very useful button. This is the import. So again, we're going to look at importing in a second, but I'll just show you what that looks like now. Very, very simple. One of the beauties of Final Cut Pro is that it is just so insanely straightforward. And last but not least, we come to preferences. There are some really important things to consider when you are setting up Final Cut Pro for the first time, and these happen in preferences. So we'll just look at editing. On the timeline, your time display, these are pretty straightforward. Show detailed trimming feedback, position playhead after edit operation. These will make more sense a little bit later, but essentially that allows me, when I get to the end of a clip like this and like this, to cheat a bit on the trimming. I can trim without having to select trim. Yeah. Inspector units, pixels, it's whatever your preference is. I stick in pixels because I've kind of taken it on from photography. Transition duration is generally 1 second. Stills images generally live for 4 seconds, and so on. This is where it gets important. Playback. Just show you here, this little clock, if I make a change here, let me just, I'll change the blade tool and I'll make a cut here. You'll now see that this clock is starting to move. It only moves very quickly, but let me undo again. The clock moves because it's doing background tasks. Again, one of the great things about Final Cut Pro is while you're getting on with just editing the film, it will do all the other things in the background. It does obviously rely on the power of your processor, but in general, it doesn't create too many problems. I've got a 3-year-old MacBook Pro, and it doesn't take it to task at all. I'm just going to get rid of Inspector while we're over here. Right, so back to preferences. This is important. When you're in Playback, it's useful to have proxy media as your playback media. The reason being, let me just show you here. The reason being, it's lighter. If I change this to original, you'll see I'll show you this again in a little bit, but there's a great improvement in visual quality in the player, but it will slow your machine. When you share, you come back and change it to optimized media. We'll talk about import. We'll talk about proxy media and optimized media during importing. Everything else is straightforward. You won't need that, but I generally do use it. It relates to frames per second within a project. So if you film something at 50 frames per second, but then you create a project at 23.9 frames per second, it will drop frames. And it's just useful to know if it's happening due to hard disk performance or if it's just happening. Not too important for you guys, really. This is important. Make sure that these boxes are ticked. Organizing. Whenever you download in here, copy files to a Final Cut events folder. I'll show you what that means in a second. Transcoding. Create optimized media. So whatever you put into Final Cut Pro, it will convert it. Normally, it converts it to ProRes 422, which is the best medium, the best high quality medium that it works with. It also creates a proxy media, which I'll show you in a second. Proxy media is generally, there can be anything down to sort of 10 or 15 or 20% of the size, really, really fast because of the smaller file size. Video, analyze for balance color. It's useful, but again, in my experience, it doesn't generally return the kind of results that you hope for. So don't rely on it, but it's worth ticking. And the same with audio. Analyze and fix audio problems. I generally find that I'm still going into clips and having to make changes. And then finally, destinations. a whole selection here. You can link it to your Vimeo account, yeah, to show some details there. You can link it to your Facebook, you can link it to YouTube, you can decide the resolutions before you send it, you can choose on better quality, faster encode, whatever quality, whatever category you want to put it into. You can save it specifically for Apple devices, Apple TV, all that sort of business, or you can create a master file. And again, total control here. Apple ProRes 4444 is super high quality, 422 high quality, 422, and so it goes on all the way down. For loading onto the web, I know you guys have got a YouTube account, so you may just want to link it to your YouTube account. It'll be up and running. A 5-minute film at HD 720 or 540 progressive. P is for progressive. They're going to look really, really nice on YouTube. They'll look nice if somebody puts it onto full screen, and yeah, they'll load up quickly and they'll be up there and ready for you to share within maybe 20 minutes. So it's pretty fast going. So yeah, you can set up, you can add a destination, yeah. But get these linked up, get these set up before you start as part of your preparation. I'll just come back to import and show you something in my Finder. Whenever you import something, if you go to your user and you go then to movies, Final Cut Pro will create a Final Cut Events and Final Cut Pro, Final Cut Projects folder. Within that, if you can see, all of the events that are here are also here. There's a couple of extra ones. And then the same in projects. If I come down to here and just show you, those are my projects, and they're all here as well. This makes archiving incredibly useful, because once you're done with a project, you can take the event and you can take the project, just select them, move them over. Here's VT archive. I don't know why I use VT, it just sounds old school. But you can then bring it over to VT archive, and again, all I've done is I've created a Final Cut Events, Final Cut Events folder, Final Cut Projects folder, and I just throw them in here, store them off my computer, and then when I need them, we'll come to this in a second, when I need them, I can just select, and one way for importing is to just bring it straight back into the Final Cut Movies folder, which I'll come to in importing. So that's the general overview of Final Cut Pro. I hope you found it useful. Don't forget to set up your preferences, get your display view nice and comfortable. Remember, when you're using music or anything that may have a license or a permissions issue, it's worth getting it, because it's just a lot of hassle if it goes online and somebody decides they don't like it. One last thing on the display, actually, which I forgot to mention: when you bring up your event, this is some footage that I shot in a in a rather crazy Chowga nightclub here in sunny Plovdiv. Quite a funky experience. Anyway, once you're in your event, it's quite simple to just get rid of that, and then depending on how you want to roll, you can either use the clips and just look through it, or you can do it like this, depending on if you're more linear, lateral, visual, or whatever. So there you go, and again, it will play in the player. Okay, so that is the general introduction and viewer and menu overview. I hope it's been useful. I'll see you in a second for importing.